All right. This looks like this is going to be our last little video chat. You guys have completed the course, or you will at the end of the week, and I hope that this has been time well spent for you. I hope that this has been something that you have found to be of value as you work through your MPH program. I think you can see now why I wanted to add a little bit more time to this particular course than what was being allowed for summer, because it's just a lot of information for you to try to process and to digest, and plus the expectations for the class. So first things first, your final papers in all of its glory, all of its rewrites, all of its revisions is due tonight by midnight. Please be sure that you have uploaded this to the Dropbox. And save yourself a copy, because you will not get this particular item back. Make sure that you have your logic model, your title page. Make sure that you have read through the instructions again, just to be sure of what is required for this paper. The lengthwise, the appendices, you can put a lot of the things in appendices. Make sure that you're writing an APA. I mean, the list could go on and on, but most of you have done really well with this, and so really it was kind of just you making some revisions. Turn that in, make sure that it's all together. If you want to submit your logic model as a separate document, that's totally fine, or if you can include it with that, just be sure that it's all together. And then your peer evaluations of the assignments that I gave you for the presentations to take a look at, they're also due at midnight tonight. Now, that also being said, what I will be doing here very soon is getting your online assessment up and running, and that's going to be available to you for 2 days, beginning on the 24th at midnight, at 12 a.m. on the 24th, and it'll go to 11:59 on the 26th. So be sure that you take a look at that. It does require a lockdown browser, and you get one chance on that. Now, one thing that I would recommend, please make sure that you have a very, very good connection to your internet source, because going in and out can cause some problems. And we'll talk just a little bit about that. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time this evening, just a little bit regarding program evaluation. It's at the end of the semester, but I don't want you to think that this is not important like everything else is important, but it actually is. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but basically what we're looking at, you've devised interventions. How do you know if this intervention or these interventions that you're working on, how do you know that if they've been a success? And so how can you assess and look at the quality? And then how can you be sure that what you've got out there is something that was worthwhile and working? And especially for those of you who might be taking a grant writing class in the future, that's one of the things that you'll see a lot of, because they want to, how can you show beyond a reasonable doubt that what you're doing is causing some good health outcomes out there? So there's a lot of good information out there, and really what we're just looking at here is again, we're creatures of habit. We like to systemize things, we like to categorize things, because it helps us to understand stuff. And so here, your evaluation, when you're thinking about your program, you're determining the value, you're looking on what kind of criteria that you had, what kind of standards that you had, and things that you would want to know by your stakeholders. Now, this may even actually be good for purposes of your intervention, and especially with your logic models. So here are some examples of standards of acceptability. And so one of the things that I do recall from your logic models is that I wasn't seeing a whole lot of detail in what exactly you were going to use to make sure that you were making changes. So, when you're talking about you want to decrease incidence of this or rates of mortality and morbidity, then you need to have something that you need to have attendance counts. You need to have numbers out there. And this gives you some good examples here about what you can actually use And so even if at this late moment, if you're making some changes to your logic model, you can still actually do that. But we're just looking for ways for you. How do you know that your program is doing what it says it's doing? And then what can I use what kind of data can I collect to show that? Because funding agencies, grant underwriters, all of these things, maybe even for just another class or for something else that you're going to be doing later on, they're going to want to know these things. So this screen here gives you some good information here. And of course, let's see, what do I want to look at here real quick? Give me just a second here. Got another screen listed up here. Of course, I'd like you to read. Go here to the types of program evaluation. Okay. So maybe you're going to do a process evaluation. So were the components that you had for your interventions, were they implemented as planned? So in other words, if you had more than one person maybe who were doing interviews or doing surveys, were they using the same language? Were they all reading off of the same script? Did they have a checklist of things that they were doing? Were they keeping good notes? How are you monitoring how you're going to recruit? That was a question I had for a couple of you. It wasn't very clear a couple of times about how you were actually getting people into your program, and then what were the criteria that was going this. And because if you don't know these things, how do you know that it came from your program? So you're also looking at impact evaluation. What are some of your short-term or immediate impacts? Typical is pre and post data. We do that a lot. A lot of times for impact evaluation, short-term is an increase in knowledge, those kinds of things. And so I would make you want to go back to those theoretical construct levels, including things about behavior. And then for your outcome and for your longer term evaluations, did your intervention affect the overall health? Did they reach the ultimate target? Did they kind of make waves in that direction? What are long-term effects? And so this would be, you can use pre and post, but typically at your outcome evaluation, and especially for a lot of you all, what you're going to do at the very end for long-term outcomes is you're going to be looking at some other type of data to see how that's actually been effective. And you can look here, and that gives you some ideas of where some of your data sources may come from, and I hope that is helpful there too. And then of course going back to our good friend and the precede proceed model, which we do use a lot in community health. And so you can use that, your short-term outcomes. You can look at what are your constructs there, what kind of behavior changes are you looking for, and then let's see where we want to go with that. We've already talked a lot about this, but just as an example again, so your inputs, some of you were very detailed on that, and I really like that. Some of you were just kind of not a whole lot listed there. Be as detailed as you want to be. If you were doing this in real life, what kind of inputs, what kind of resources would you need? The more the better. And then what are the program activities? What exactly are you going to do? Those are your outputs. And then based upon your inputs, your outputs, what are your outcomes going to be? And we would like you to think in short, midterm, and long term. So the situation is that you have a headache. So your input would be you're going to get some medication to take care of this, or you're going to put a cold rag over top of your head, or then your output is going to be that you're going to take the pills, and then hopefully you're going to feel better. And so this really, a lot of what you're seeing here just has a lot to do with how we look at the logic models. And here's the thing, and I know I've said this probably more than once, but a lot of folks are not going to read through your report. They're going to want to take a look at a snapshot of this, and that's what your logic model can actually help you do. They can say, okay, here's what we need for this. Here's what they're going to do. Who are they going to reach? And then here's what they're looking for. And so they're making a value judgment on that. And so you would want to have that stuff pretty well set. So that would be good. Other things that you would want to consider too, there are some threats to validity. you want to have a good an evaluation design, because how do you know that there's not another campaign or another program that's going on? How do you know that their program is the one making the change and not yours? And so what about maturation confounding? Participants, they do age, they gain experience, which of course you can't take that away from them, and so they learn. People sometimes become very familiar with the testing instrument. And, there is a bias specifically for people who choose to engage in either surveys or research that may be different than the actual population itself too. And then sometimes regression to the mean. You have extreme scores reaching the mean. You have a ceiling effect there too. People self-select themselves into there. I've already said that. And then, mortality or attrition confounding. Sometimes people drop out. Sometimes you have a number of people who drop out. So is there a difference between the people who did drop out, who didn't complete the program, as opposed to people who did? And then, depending too, if you have in a small area, if you have in a small place that you're doing an intervention, if your control or your experimental or your intervention group is different and they're talking, sometimes there's contamination. And of course, we would like to always, that there are some ethical concerns that we have for people. I will let you read through those. Those are really important for us. Let's see. Do I want to say anything else here? I really don't want to. There's not a whole lot that I would like to say here, other than that this is important. And so you've been learning about theory. You've been learning about behavior. You've been trying to think through things. You've been trying to think about what kind of a program that you would want to work with. You're reading and seeing what your classmates are doing. All of this goes together. So there is a study guide out there, I think, for your comps, for those of you who are taking comps this summer, which would be after this. I would take a look at that. Connie, I did get your email. I apologize. I just haven't had the chance to respond back to you. As you can see, I'm not at work right now. I've not been feeling well for the last couple of days, but I needed to get this out here to you all. So the 24th, the exam will be up. Make sure it's on a secure browser. You are not to use your textbook. You are not to use your notes. You are not to share information. I never have quite understood why people would want to help somebody else in the event to do better on an exam than they do. I'm very competitive, and I think that if you study hard, that those results will come from that. And for those of you who will be make sure that the exam is done, I will need probably the rest of the week to get everything graded for you all, but I'll have that out there. And of course, we'll let you know what the grades are. And of course, you can always contact me. I've enjoyed this. I love this type of thing. In class is better, I think, at this, but this is what we've got to work with, and this works for your scheduling too. So I'm hoping maybe I'll see you around on campus. Maybe I'll have you over some other coursework. But please reach out to me if you would like. There's also the SAIs are also available to you. I think that they're coming due on the 26th, of course, when the class is ending. We kind of live and die on those, and so if that is something that would be helpful for you, to let us know how the course is being taught. This particular course is going away because you all are under the old catalog. There are some people who are coming in under the fall are under something totally different, but feedback is still good feedback, and we'd love to have that. So thank you. Good luck on submitting your papers. Good luck on your exam. I'll make sure that I get everything up and running. And of course, if you've got questions, please just email me and contact me that way. Okay?